welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine, host of the podcast On the Edge, reporting today from Lviv, Ukraine. Do I have that right, Phil?
Indeed. I'm traveling back, Tom. I'm returning to Kyiv. I have been away back in the States and the United Kingdom for some, reasons. But I am headed back. And so here I am in Lviv, and I've been here for the day, most of the day, and talking to people here because I used to live here at one point, and I have many friends.
Is to the west.
Lviv is basically on the Polish border. Okay. It is the first major metropolitan area that you come to after you cross the border. Right. And when the full-scale invasion began, I came here and lived here for about 6 months as the battle in Kyiv was taking place because we weren't sure how this was going to go. Were there going to be Russian tanks in the center of Kyiv, and would it not be reasonable or, smart, safe to go there? And so I lived here for a long time, and I know this town very well, and I have very good friends here, and I speak to them quite often, and I've had lunch with them today, and they get attacked, not as badly as Kyiv or eastern cities closer to the front lines, but they do get attacked. And so when I spoke to them today about how their lives are and how things are going in Lviv, they say, well, it could be worse. We recognize that it could be worse, but it is still bad, and we are losing friends and family, and soldiers and young men and women are going to the front lines from here because they believe in the defense of Ukraine. So it is not, it does not escape the tragedy and the trauma of this war, but it is comparatively safer than being out east.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I'm glad you're staying safe, Phil. I've been reading two things I wanted to ask you about. One is that apparently Scott, what's his name? Witkoff? Trump's so-called negotiator, this real estate billionaire out of New York, who's also has apparently a whole bunch of oligarch ties to Putin, and Jared Kushner, of course, who got $3 billion, I guess now, from the Saudis, and his father-in-law has a long history of ties to Russia, are meeting with Russian officials in Miami apparently tomorrow, I think, to negotiate without any input. There's nobody from Ukraine there. Number one. And number two, I'm also hearing that Ukraine is really inflicting serious damage on Russia. I mean, taking out a submarine, blowing up another oil pipeline. So either one of those, I mean, I want to get through both of them, but what say you?
Well, but let me get to both of them. Firstly, Witkoff is completely out of his depth. He and Kushner and the kind of circle around Trump that really has no extended knowledge or experience working with Russia have been given, to my opinion, undue responsibility to try and resolve this, because the Trump administration in the first term swept out some of our best Russia experts, and some were brought back into the fold during the Biden administration. But it is well known that those who are experts when it comes to Russia within either the State Department or the Pentagon have been relegated to either they've completely been kicked out or they've been relegated to very minor positions, because anybody who knows anything about Russia for the Trump administration, it's bad news. Because anybody who knows anything about Russia knows that the GRU, the military intelligence agency of the Russian state, interfered in our 2016 election and got Trump elected. So, of course, Trump doesn't want any of those people still inside the fold. So they have gotten rid of these people and they've replaced them with these sycophants and these people who have no knowledge of the complexity of the East-West relation between Moscow and Europe and the United States. And so Witkoff is just so in over his head. And we know that Moscow was the one that provided this recent proposal for a peace agreement that had only Moscow's interests at heart and nothing of Kiev. So, Witkoff can meet in Miami with whomever he likes. If the Ukrainians are not there, it is not worth anything. Because there has to, and we've spoken about this before, Tom, there has to be a realization at some point, and it's very important, that the West realizes that Ukraine is a sovereign state. It is no longer a colony of another state, Moscow, Russia. And to treat Ukraine as a colonized state and thereby subject to the whims of its imperial master is the entirely wrong approach. And Witkoff clearly does not understand this. And so when we see proposals coming out of all these ideas, this is how we're going to find peace in Ukraine, and the Trump administration and Witkoff and Marco Rubio and anybody who is now currently within the Trump administration's foreign policy wing, if they don't recognize the fact that Ukraine simply will not bend the knee to anybody, whether it is Washington or Brussels or London or, of course, not Moscow, is going to have a very hard time finding any.
So how many different beauty potions do you have sitting on your bathroom counter right now? Hey, if it's more than just Vibrant Super C Serum, listen up, because the ingredients in this one bottle can replace your day creams, eye creams, night creams, neck creams, wrinkle creams, even those dark spot reducers we all buy with high hopes. Now, I'll tell you, when I first tried Vibrance, what struck me immediately was the feel of it. It goes on smooth, not greasy and not heavy. My skin just kind of drank it in, and after a little while, I genuinely noticed a difference, a bit more brightness, a little more evenness, almost like my skin finally got what it had been asking for. And frankly, I love anything that amplifies my morning routine. One step instead of five, I'm all in. Vibrant Super C Serum is made with high-quality ingredients, vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, vitamin B5, vitamin E, and it delivers real, visible results. If you want to streamline your skincare, improve your complexion, and minimize wrinkles and age spots, this is such an easy upgrade. And if you don't find it better than what's already in your routine, I'll give you a full refund. Go to Vibrance.com/Tom to save up to 37% off and get free shipping. That's Vibrance, Vibrance.com/Tom, THOM.
A negotiated settlement that the Ukrainians will accept. Ukraine is not a colony. Ukraine is a sovereign state. And it is time that both East and West recognize that. Now, you had another question for me, and I've completely gone off on a tangent.
No, it's great. It's the other
and I
question
apologize.
Was, is Ukraine succeeding in bringing Russia's economy and their oil infrastructure, and most recently the submarine, down? I mean, are they doing enough damage?
Boy, I wish I could swear.
Go ahead.
Boy, I wish I could swear, because they're kicking the posterior of Russia. Russia is losing this war. Russia's losing this war badly, really, really badly.
Which is why they're pushing for negotiated settlement right now.
Exactly. And why is it that we in the West, the Europeans are better at this, but why is it that we in America cannot recognize the idea that it is possible for a state that is nominally a smaller state and a smaller country can defeat a larger enemy? My goodness. If we approach this conflict the same way that we approached America's involvement in Vietnam or in Iraq or in Afghanistan, why is it so difficult for us to understand that just because you're a bigger state means that the inevitability of your victory in a conflict is already pre-written. Russia is losing this war. Russia is losing this war badly. Ukraine does not have a navy, and yet they have relegated the entire Black Sea fleet of Russia into the farthermost eastern shores of the Black Sea. And this is where this incident happened. So now there's no place for them to run. And what has happened in this eastern shore of the Black Sea, which is not the regular headquarters of the Black Sea fleet for the Russians, a place called Novorossiysk. Normally they're in Crimea, but because Crimea is under threat from the rest of Ukraine, they've moved their Black Sea fleet to the farthest they could possibly go. And yet still, the Ukrainians have been developing technologies that allow them, drone technologies, to attack this fleet. So apparently what the Ukrainians did is they used an underwater, basically a submarine drone to slip through the defenses at this base on the far eastern shore of Ukraine in Novorossiysk and hit a submarine. Ukraine doesn't have a navy. Yeah. And they've just seriously damaged, if not basically made inoperable, one of Russia's nuclear submarines, which they use to attack Ukraine by firing cruise missiles. This is particularly a submarine that was used to fire cruise missiles. They're just losing. They're losing.
I get it, Phil. I have about a minute and 20 seconds here before we hit a hard break, and one last question. Trump suspended his whatever you call it against Belarus. His I forget the word.
Tariff?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just tariffs. It was this whole thing. Where you guys can't do trade, and I'm wondering why and what impact that's going to have on all this, given that Belarus is so close to Russia. Are you unfamiliar with this?
Well, no, it's not that I'm fully unaware of it. Sanctions. Fine. I'll try to make it quick because I know you got a heart out. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. But this is what I do know. Belarus is not a sovereign state. Belarus is what Russia wants to make Ukraine into. Right. Belarus is it is a puppet state. It is anything that happens in Belarus is determined in the Kremlin, not in Minsk, not by President Lukashenko, and that's what the Kremlin wants to turn Ukraine into.
Do they speak Russian in Belarus, or does it have its own language?
They do speak. It does have its own language, but predominantly it does speak Russian. But look, the important thing is to recognize that any agreement with the Lukashenko administration and Minsk is an agreement with the Kremlin. Yeah. So if the United States and the Trump administration are making deals with Lukashenko and Minsk, they're making deals with Moscow, and we should all be deeply concerned.
And that just happened, a week or two ago, and it's gotten almost no coverage at all. It's amazing. Phil Ittner, the great Phil Ittner, veteran war correspondent. Check out his podcast, On the Edge. Phil, thanks so much.
Talk to you in Kiev next time.
Looking forward to it.
All the best to you.
Thank you. Back at you, and happy holidays.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stay with us.